Do you remember the night of September 28th, 1972?
Very clearly. Every Canadian that grew up in that time remembers that night and remembers that event, absolutely.
And what were you doing during that game?
During that game, I was in school. That day, the teacher actually brought television into the school so that we could watch that hockey game. It was unbelievable. And then that day, I literally ran the whole way home so I could watch the rest of the game. There was such hype. There was such hype in this country. It was unbelievable.
Following World War II, the leaders of the Soviet Union and the leaders of the West were looking for ways to display their dominance and show that their respective political ideology was superior. This battle took place on many fronts, including the arms race, the space race, proxy wars, propaganda campaigns, and of course, sport. Hockey quickly became the center of attention on the sports front after the USSR competed for their first time in 1954 at the International Ice Hockey Championships, where they took home gold. Very quickly, the Soviets became dominant, even winning 9 consecutive world championships between 1963 and 1971. However, this rise to the top was controversial. Many argued that the Soviet athletes in question weren't truly amateur, as they were being state-funded under the pretense of holding high military and factory positions. By 1972, the Soviet Union had become so confident in their abilities that they claimed their best athletes could beat Canada's best, professional or otherwise. This claim evolved into the 1972 Summit Series.
I knew that there was a lot of talk in the media about it. I know there was a lot of anger that the Russians were doing well. I knew there was some kind of a political message in all that, but I didn't really understand what that political message was. All I know, it was us against them, the good against the bad. They did this wrong. There was just a lot of commentary around two very different political systems.
Most of Canada's players never once seen a weight room in the off-season until training camp came around. And when it did, most of the team was just going through the motions. The Soviets trained for a year before the Summit Series, and in off-season, they concentrated on their fitness and weight training. The Soviets were very well prepared for the games. They trained like NHL players do now, 12 months of the year with maybe a few weeks off. Canada, however, considered golfing and fishing good enough training for fitness and weights. The Soviets were also on the ice by July 3rd, 1972, which is 43 days ahead of Team Canada.
Game 1. Canadians came into this game expecting a win, but were very disappointed when the USSR severely defeated by 7-3. The press really tore into the Canadians for this. Game 2 went to the Canadians with a 4-1 win. They brought back the Canadians' confidence as a team and a nation. Game 3. This was a game that showed that both the teams could really compete in their own ways and with their own strategies. Game 4. Some of the Canadian fans began to cheer for the Russians and boo the Canadians. There was a significant lack of morale on the Canadian team, and Phil Esposito used his post-game interview to tell the Canadians to support their boys. Game 5. This was the first game in Russia. The game was played with technical difficulties. As the team skated off, the fans stood and proudly sang, "Oh Canada." This made the boys way more confident. Game 6 was Canada's first win in Russia. Canadians brought out the game that we knew how to play, with hard hits and simply more overwhelming physical game. People described it as a war. Game 7. Canadians were hyped after the last game. The game started off slow and there was tons of tension, but the game began to heat up. Foster Hewitt said that it would not take much for it to break out into fighting. Game 8. Before the first game, people were expecting a typical series with Canadians winning, with maybe a little back and forth. Before Game 8, people were claiming that you could not have asked for a more exciting finale. When Paul Henderson scored his goal, the fans exploded, waving flags and feeling an immense amount of national pride.
Paul Henderson is a Canadian former professional ice hockey player, a lifetime winner. Henderson is best known for leading Team Canada to victory at the 1972 Summit Series against the Soviet Union. Henderson scored the game-winning goal in the 6, 7, and 8 games, the last of which has become legendary in Canada and made him a national hero. In the 8th game, the fourth shot was stopped by Vladimir Tradic, but Henderson recovered the rebound and slid it past the falling goaltender to give Canada a 6-5 lead with only 34 seconds left to play. The goal won the game and the series for Canada.
Today in the NHL, they play the way the USSR did in that game. It has never been played the same. In the 70s, it was played by only skating in your lane and straight skating, but now it is played more defensively and rough. The USSR spent the majority of time conditioning and getting into shape. This made it hard for Canada to keep up. Now NHL teams spend a lot of time off ice training and conditioning, off season and during the season. Technology has also changed hockey. During the time of the Summit Series, the sticks were relatively heavy compared to what they are now. Today, the hockey sticks are the best they've ever been. Players are able to control the puck more efficiently. When taking a shot, the stick allows the player to exert more energy, allowing for a more precise shot. The Summit Series changed hockey forever.
What a goal by Bo Horvath! Big Bo makes it a tie game.